Welcome to the COVID-19 Vaccine Overview webinar. Please note that information related to COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccine delivery is evolving. This webinar is current as of today, March 19th, 2021. I would like to first start by gratefully acknowledging that I'm joining you today from the unceded and traditional Coast Salish territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I recognize you're joining me from different parts of the province or perhaps different parts of the country and different traditional territories. I'd like us all to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territories that we are on, and I'm really grateful that we can be together virtually through this recorded webinar together. The goal of this webinar is to establish a foundation of knowledge to support new and existing vaccine providers in the delivery of the COVID-19 immunization program, and will highlight key immunization resources in BC. You can see on this slide, we have the webinar divided into two parts. Part one includes an overview of the education for new immunization providers, an overview of the COVID-19 virus, the epidemiology, vaccines, efficacy and early effectiveness, the testing, approval, and safety monitoring, as well as the eligibility. In part two of the webinar, we'll provide an overview of the BC immunization resources. A list of these resources will be available on the Learning Hub main page for this webinar. Additional webinars will provide the specific details related to COVID-19 vaccines as they become available. As timely education is essential for both new and existing vaccine providers to safely and competently administer COVID-19 vaccine, it is recognized that an expedited immunization competency education process may be needed to onboard new vaccine providers to administer COVID-19 vaccines. Refer to the education recommendations for COVID-19 immunization providers or immunizers as per respective regulatory college scope of practice and the provincial health officer order found on the COVID-19 vaccine resources for health professionals page on the BC CDC website. A link to this page is included in the resource list for this webinar. So let's start with the COVID-19 virus. Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses found mostly in animals. In humans, they can cause diseases ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases, such as severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, and Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS. The disease caused by the new severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, or SARS-CoV-2, and responsible for this global pandemic have been named COVID-19. This image of the SARS-CoV-2 shows the distinguishing feature, the spike protein found on the surface of the virus. These proteins play a key role in the life cycle of the virus. As a review of what we know, COVID-19 is spread by liquid droplets when a person coughs, sneezes, or sometimes talks or sings. If you are in close contact with an infected person, the virus can enter the body if droplets get into the eyes, nose, or throat. Symptoms range from mild to severe and may include cough, shortness of breath, fever, chills, tiredness, and loss of smell or taste. Though most people with COVID-19 recover, some are at higher risk of developing severe illness, hospitalization, long-term complications, or even death. According to the World Health Organization, of those infected, 40% will have mild illness, 40% will have moderate illness, 15% will have severe illness, and 5% critical. COVID-19 continues to be a serious health threat, with the situation evolving daily. The BC COVID-19 dashboard shown on this slide provides daily updates on COVID-19 cases in BC. The dashboard includes the total number of COVID-19 cases, the number of cases per region, the number of hospitalized cases, as well as the number of tests done around the province. In addition, the BC Centre for Disease Control produces weekly situation reports that provide a more in-depth look at COVID-19 epidemiology in BC. A link to this information on the BC CDC website is included in the resource list for this webinar. At this time, there are 4 categories of COVID-19 vaccines currently developed or under development for which Canada has advanced purchase agreements. contingent on the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. These include mRNA or messenger RNA vaccines developed by Pfizer and Moderna and have been authorized for use in Canada. Viral vector vaccines, which include the COVID-19 vaccines developed by AstraZeneca, which is also supplied by the Serum Institute of India and named Covishield, and the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen COVID-19 vaccine, which have been authorized for use in Canada. The protein subunit COVID-19 vaccine developed by Novavax is under review by Health Canada. And to round off the list of the 4 categories is the virus-like particle vaccine by Medicago. All vaccines work by exposing the body to molecules from the target pathogen. In the case of COVID-19, it is the spike protein, which is the unique feature of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Methods of how to expose the spike protein to trigger an immune response may vary across the different categories of vaccines. But the primary goal remains the same, to elicit a primary immune response to form immunologic memory. The efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines shown in this table at 14 days after the first dose and prior to the second dose found to be between 76% for AstraZeneca and 92 to 93% for Moderna and Pfizer. An exploratory analysis of the AstraZeneca vaccine examined the potential effect of the interval between dose 1 and 2 on vaccine efficacy in study participants receiving the standard dose for both doses. This analysis indicated that efficacy was higher in those with longer interval, over 12 weeks, at 81.3%. Further exploratory analysis at over 22 days after the first dose found that a single standard dose vaccine provided protection against primary symptomatic COVID-19 in the first 90 days with an efficacy of 76%, with no evidence of waning of protection during the same time period. Although a 2-dose vaccine series remains important to provide long-term protection, there is strong scientific evidence from clinical trials and real-world experience to support deferral of the second dose of COVID-19 vaccine. By providing a first dose now to as many people as possible, will save more lives and avoid more cases and hospitalization and support a return to essential functions in our communities. This approach aligns with the Canadian National Advisory Committee on Immunization recommendation that in the context of limited COVID-19 vaccine supply, jurisdictions should maximize the number of individuals benefiting from the first dose of vaccine by extending the interval for the second dose of vaccine up to 4 months. So for more information, please refer to the public health statement on a deferral of second dose COVID-19 vaccine in BC, which provides additional information on the deferral of the second dose of COVID-19 vaccines. And you'll note the reference on the slide here as well. Early surveillance data of cases among vaccinated long-term care residents and healthcare workers from late December 2020 to early February 2021 show a drop in cases in both groups at about 14 days after vaccination, with hospitalization and deaths also lower. This graph is taken from the March 11th BC CDC weekly data summary, which shows that since the start of the vaccination rollout in BC, COVID-19 cases have decreased dramatically in long-term care residents and staff. In parallel, there have been very few new deaths in long-term care residents since the beginning of February. Creating a new vaccine can take years. This slide shows how each vaccine must go through preclinical studies and multiple clinical trial phases before the vaccine reaches the approval stage. In Canada, approval is through the Biological Radiopharmaceutical Drugs and Directorate, or BRDD, which is the regulatory authority within Health Canada responsible for approving vaccines for human use. The BRDD reviews the data from the clinical trials and approves the vaccine for use if it's proven to be safe, It's proven to work, its benefits greatly outweigh any risks, and it meets manufacturing standards. The development of COVID-19 vaccines has been able to progress rapidly for many reasons, including advances in science and technology, international collaboration among scientists, researchers, health professionals, industry, and governments, and increased dedicated funding. Canada has one of the most thorough systems to approve new vaccines for use in people. Once a vaccine is approved and is in use, vaccine safety is continuously monitored to identify serious adverse events. If these events happen, authorities investigate to identify whether the vaccine is directly responsible. If required, a vaccine can be withdrawn from the market and no longer used. An adverse event following immunization, or also known as an AFI, is an untoward medical occurrence after a vaccine has been given that may or may not be caused by the vaccine. As of January 1st, 2021, health professionals who are aware of an AFI must report the event to the regional medical health officer or delegate as per the Public Health Act. For COVID-19 vaccines, the usual reporting process for AFIs remains the same. A summary of COVID-19 vaccines AFI reports is available on the Health Canada website. For healthcare providers in BC, the decision support tool for AFI reporting can be found in the BC Immunization Manual Part 5, Adverse Events Following Immunization. In addition, the BC CDC Reporting Adverse Events Following Immunization resource is available online and provides key links to important AFI reporting resources, such as the case report form and where in the province of BC to report an AFI, in which region of the province. So a link to this resource will be included in the resource list for this webinar. The BC COVID-19 immunization plan has begun according to priority populations based on the National Advisory Committee on Immunization recommendations. The goal of this plan is to protect those most likely to experience severe illness, hospitalization, and death. The plan will happen in 4 phases. Phase 1 included residents, staff, and essential visitors to long-term care and assisted living residences, individuals in hospital or community awaiting long-term care placement, healthcare workers providing care for COVID-19 patients, remote and isolated Indigenous communities. We are currently in phase 2, and during this phase, approximately 400,000 people will be immunized from March to mid-April, including seniors, Indigenous peoples, and people who live and work in independent living. On March 18th, Dr. Henry provided an updated immunization plan, which expanded the vaccine rollout to include more than 300,000 essential workers, including first responders, grocery store staff, teachers, educational and childcare staff, workers and other frontline workers and industries will be prioritized for COVID-19 vaccinations beginning in April. BC will prioritize workers in workplaces and sectors where the use of personal protective equipment and barriers can be challenging. Also, where outbreaks and clusters have occurred or are ongoing, where workers must live or work in congregate settings, or where maintaining the workforce for a critical service is necessary. These efforts will complement BC's foundational age-based immunization plan, which prioritizes people by age. For more information, go to the BC CDC COVID-19 vaccine eligibility page. A link to this page will be included in the resource list as well. When most people are immunized, the spread of disease is contained, which is shown here on this slide. While the level of COVID-19 vaccination coverage required to achieve herd immunity or community immunity will vary based on vaccine effectiveness, It has been estimated that approximately 60 to 72% of the population would need to be immune to block the continued transmission of SARS-CoV-2 and will work to preventing its resurgence. So that completes part 1 of the webinar. Moving on to part 2 of the webinar, we will review key resources associated with the COVID-19 immunization program in BC. Subsequent webinars will focus on the specific details for each COVID-19 vaccine as they become available in the province. The BC Immunization Manual is located in Chapter 2 of the BC CDC Communicable Disease Control Manual. The BC Immunization Manual is where you can find the best practice guidelines to direct the provision of immunization services and includes the decision support tools and supporting resources for vaccine providers in BC. This manual includes an introduction that reviews provider responsibilities, immunization competencies, and opportunities for immunization. Part 1 to 5 are the decision support tools for vaccine providers and offers detailed information on immunization schedules, immunization of special populations, management of anaphylaxis in a non-hospital setting, biological products, and adverse events following immunization. Appendices are where you can find additional information to support immunization practice, such as informed consent process, administration of vaccines, contraindications and precautions, strategies to reduce immunization injection pain, storage and handling of biologics, and basic concepts related to the immune system and the vaccine immune response. A key section of the immunization manual is Part 4, biological products, which includes vaccines and immune globulins. The Moderna COVID-19 mRNA vaccine product page is shown on the slide as an example. Part 4 is the decision support tool that provides product-specific information on vaccines and immune globulins, including eligibility, dosing, administration, and scheduling. The healthcare professional Q&A is a supplementary resource that supports the immunization guidelines and provides further information about the COVID-19 vaccines and the immunization program in BC, as well as more information about the recommendations in this guideline. The COVID-19 immunization program Q&A for healthcare providers is available on the BC CDC website and is included as a resource for this webinar. The COVID-19 vaccine screening checklist is a healthcare provider tool that is an extension of the information found in both the immunization manual and the COVID-19 mRNA. I apologize for the general COVID-19 BC Health Link health file. It is a tool to support healthcare providers to frame pre-immunization questions and is intended to assist vaccine providers to assess the client's health status prior to administration of the vaccine. The aftercare resource has been developed from a knowledge translation lens and provides information for the public on what to expect following vaccination. The COVID-19 Vaccine BC Health Link Health File is a resource that's written for the public and is used to provide standard information to obtain informed consent. So here's a screenshot of the HealthLink BC health file for COVID-19 vaccines, which provides the standard information to obtain informed consent prior to administration of the vaccine or vaccine series. So this information page can be found on the HealthLink BC website. And for more information about the requirements for informed consent, please refer to the BC Immunization Manual, Appendix A, Informed Consent. Documentation is a required step of an immunization visit. Documentation for an immunization must include client identification, informed consent, date and time of administration, name of the biological product and manufacturer, lot number, route and site of administration, any reactions following immunization, and the name and title of the person administering the vaccine. The COVID-19 immunization record card should be provided to the vaccine recipient as a record of the immunization. If this card is not available, please ensure that an alternative immunization record is provided to the vaccine recipient that includes the name of the person being immunized, the date of birth, name of the vaccine and lot number, the date the vaccine was given, and the provider name. So some key considerations here to take with you into every immunization encounter. We know that trust in a healthcare provider is key to supporting vaccine acceptance. To make every immunization encounter a positive experience for everyone in our community, it's important that we approach every interaction with cultural safety, a trauma-informed lens, and language equity, and to remember that communication is key in building these trusting relationships. Culturally safe care is essential to building trust, and every immunization encounter should be approached with this as a foundation. Culturally safe care results in an environment free of racism, discrimination, and where people feel safe. As a reminder, it's voluntary for individuals to self-identify as Indigenous. Individuals who self-identify as Indigenous do not need to provide proof of their heritage in order to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Achieving a culturally safe care outcome involves the healthcare provider being able to practice cultural humility and self-reflection and embrace continuous learning. To help support your own continuous learning, please visit the BC CDC's Culturally Safe Care page for more information and resources, and a link to this will be provided in the webinar's resource list. With the arrival of new COVID-19 vaccines that were developed in record time, there will be those who are hesitant about getting the vaccine or those who may have many questions about the new vaccine. This is somewhat understandable in light of the COVID-19 infodemic and misinformation. Some strategies to address vaccine hesitant individuals include staying informed and going to reputable and credible resources for information. Try to understand the person's concerns and address their questions using short and simple key messages. Present both the risks and benefits of the vaccine fairly and accurately. Use presumptive statements such as, "You are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. Let's give it to you today." Discuss herd or community immunity and stress that it does not guarantee personal protection. However, getting the vaccine will. And last but not least, remember the strength of a healthcare provider's recommendation can move a person towards acceptance and their decision to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. As new COVID-19 vaccines become available, additional webinars will be developed. At this time, there are 2 additional COVID-19 webinars, the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine webinar and the viral vector COVID-19 vaccine webinar. Each of these webinars are available on the Learning Hub and will provide detailed information about these vaccines. As a reminder, the resource list will be available on the Learning Hub main page for this webinar. I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar and thank you for your contribution to the COVID-19 immunization campaign. Thank you.